الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Uh, Thank you for joining. Just a couple of points before we begin. I will be taking maybe a 3 to 5 minute break just in the middle because it's going to be Fajr time in a bit. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to take a quick break and then I'll come back again in 3 to 5 minutes. I'll let you guys know when I do that. Second of all, because the sessions are only 2 hours each, the subject that we're covering is not something that can actually be covered in such a short amount of time. So some of these slides that I've made are from a previous class that I taught, and then I added a lot more new things to it, and I also took out a lot of stuff from it. But even despite that, there are certain slides which I'm not really going to cover in detail. Maybe I'll point towards them, and then if anyone has any questions or more want to look at more into it, then they can message me or whatever, find some ways to contact me for that information. But otherwise, there are some slides that I won't be covering in detail. So the course is called Introduction to Traditional Logic. And maybe you guys are wondering why traditional logic. What is it about traditional logic that is important? Why not introduction to modern logic, for example, or I don't know, 21st century logic? So we have different types of logics that you may have heard about within universities, especially if you're doing computer science or math. The difference between those logics and this logic is that those logics that you study in computer science, for example, first order, second order logic, those are sort of based upon traditional logic to begin with, okay? And that's why the foundation of sort of your whole thought process, the foundation of man's thoughts, man's reasoning, are based on logic, which is what we basically call traditional logic. Second of all, one of the reasons why we want to refer to it as traditional logic is because in modern times, this specific form of logic has been heavily critiqued. Okay, this is also called Aristotelian logic. As they say, Aristotle was the founder and so on. So they call it Aristotelian logic as well. And this has really been critiqued in the West, especially after 19th, 20th century, and with Karl Popper, for example, in the 20th century. They really came and they tried to critique this. And once you destroy the foundations of Aristotelian logic, you don't really have anything to work off of. And you can kind of see the impact of this in the West now, especially with post-modernity, where, they say some very weird things. We can create meaning, we can do this, life doesn't have any purpose. All these sort of, this rhetoric that pops up is based on the fact that they don't have anything firm to stand on anymore. So that's why we're talking about traditional logic. And inshallah, we're going to slowly explain what's going on over here and what's the purpose of this. Okay. So what is it? What is logic, right? What exactly are we talking about? Is this something that, you have to study? So then only then you're going to know what logic is? Aren't all humans logical beings? Don't we make logical decisions or, conclusions? Yeah, that is true. Humans are logical beings, okay? We do, for example, reason logically, more or less. But there are many times that we also tend to make mistakes in our thinking process. Okay? I don't know, if we didn't have any experience, for example, we may look at a pencil in a jug of water, which looks broken. So we may come to the conclusion that this pencil is broken. Over here, this is a reasoning. We looked at it, we're like, okay, the pencil looks broken, therefore it is broken. But after experience, after we take the pencil out, we sense and look at the pencil again, we realize that, okay, it's not actually broken. So why did we initially say it was broken? That was a wrong judgment that we made. So despite the fact that we are reasoning all the time, the reasoning is not always, perfect. There's many times that we make mistakes. So with that in hindsight, the definition of logic then becomes that it is a canonical tool. Okay, it's a tool or instrumental tool, which only if you make use of it, your thinking process or your mind will be immunized from error. Okay, so it's one thing to go and learn about logic. Okay, you can go and learn, you can spend years learning about it, but if you don't use it, you're still gonna make mistakes. Okay, and we see this a lot. Some people, they go and study logic years after years, books after books, but you come and you see them in certain discussions, they make very simple logical mistakes. Okay, now, so that's what it is. So the time or the moment where you're going to use logic is when something is unknown. Okay, when do you reason? You reason when something is not known to you. Okay? You don't know something and you want to figure it out. Okay? You want to reach a conclusion, for example. That is basically your thinking process. Okay? You're thinking. What is thinking process? What does it mean to think, right? Thinking means that there is something that is unknown to you, and at the same time there is some stuff that is known to you, so you make use of that known knowledge. Okay, play with it, you mess around with it, you think about it, and you come to a new conclusion, which is now your known. Okay, which is now the known object. That thinking process by which you're going to do that is where you're going to apply logic. Okay? Now Aristotle is, I don't want to go into the history, Aristotle is sort of given credit for composing it into a text. And this is important because it's not that he came up with logic. No, humans, we were already reasoning. These things were already sort of with us. We already had this sort of function, but he put it on paper. Okay, he put it on book. He put it in a book so that it's easier for you to, for example, learn about it and study. Now, in many subjects, okay, in almost pretty much all subjects that you study, no matter what field you're in, okay, science, business, medicine, even philosophy, and likewise in logic, there are always certain presumptions that you're going to make. Okay, what do I mean by that? For example, if you're doing science, if you're a science major, okay, you're a medical medicine student, before you conduct any experiment, okay, the presumptions that you make are, for example, the law of causality. Okay, you made a presumption that, okay, when I do something, it's going to become a cause and it will have a certain effect. Okay, you make this presumption. Or you may make the presumption that there is order in the universe so that you're able to now predict what will happen in the future. Okay, these are two presumptions that you made, but these presumptions are not studied within science itself. You don't study, for example, the law of causality in science, okay, in medicine. It's a presumption that you made and you've entered into science with this presumption. Likewise, in logic, you have to make a presumption. Sometimes those presumptions have a whole separate science that you can discuss those in. Okay, for logic, that presumption is made in the subject of epistemology. Okay, in Arabic it's called Nadariyatul Ma'rifa, in Farsi it's called Ma'rifa Shinasi, and in English we call it epistemology or theory of knowledge. These two terms are used for it. Now, what are certain presumptions that we're making before we study logic? Okay, and you need to know this because you may have a question that pertains an issue which is studied in epistemology. So, for example, if once you presume these, okay, and when we start studying logic, it will be incorrect to go and sort of critique something that is based on a principle that we studied and established in epistemology. Okay, for example, foundationalism. Okay, foundationalism is the concept that there are certain beliefs that we have which we can't prove. Okay, and by what I mean by can't prove does not mean that it's blind faith. Okay, this is really important. What I mean by can't prove is that it's so obvious, it's so clear, and some of these things are basically what they call first principles. Okay, in order to prove them, you would have to presume them in your argument. Okay, for example, law of causality. You can't prove law of causality in a logical argument. Why? Because a logical argument itself is an instance of cause and effect. Okay, you put your premise, You bring your premises, that's your cause, and the effect of those putting those premises together is your conclusion. That's called. So you're already presuming cause and effect even in an argument. So when we say we can't prove it in logic, what we mean here is that it's very obvious. It's very clear. The reason why I'm making this clear is because in Muharram, I was there and I said this to somebody and they thought, okay, well, then that means it's blind faith. We don't really know. No, that's not what it means. When we say we can't prove something in logic, specifically I'm talking about, or in philosophy, meaning it's badihi, it's self-evident, it's obvious, and it's a form of knowledge. Okay, we know it. Another presumption that we make is realism, and the fact that when we look at things around us, they're real. Okay, when I see a wall in front of me, that's actually a wall. I'm not imagining it in my head. Okay, then we have objectivity. Okay, there are certain things that we objectively know. Not everything is subjective. Okay, then you have the value of different tools of knowledge. So sometimes we acquire knowledge from the intellect, sometimes we use our senses, sometimes we use experimentation. What is the value of each of these? Is the knowledge that is derived from the intellect greater than the knowledge that is derived from scientific experimentation? These type of questions, they're all discussed and determined in epistemology, and some of these become the basis of some presumptions that you make within logic. Okay. Now, generally, logic was divided into two areas. Okay. Part one is called conceptions, tasawwur or tasawwurat, it's plural. And part two is called affirmations or assents, which is tasdiqat, which is when you do tasdiq and you confirm something. Let me just explain this quickly. Conception is going to be, we're going to discuss these, both of them in detail now. Conception is the fact that before you make any judgments about anything, okay, and then those judgments will be used in reasoning, okay, when you make an argument, you have to have a concept of what you're talking about and what you're discussing. Okay, you need to have a tasawwur, you need to have an image in your mind about what exactly are you talking about. If I'm talking about a wall, let's say, and I want to get an argument across to you regarding a wall, what does that mean? What does a wall mean? Okay, what concept of a good example would be, very vague terms like freedom, for example. When we say, Islam wants freedom, and then in the West they say, it's all about freedom. What is the concept of freedom that you have as opposed to someone else? What, maybe their concept, the way they're conceptualizing it is different, and therefore the conclusions will also differ. That's concepts, and then obviously affirmation is the next step after that. Okay. Now we are talking about knowledge specifically. Okay, logic has to do with knowledge, meaning you reason with knowledge, and then you reach a conclusion, which is now a new piece of knowledge. Okay, ilm. Now there are two forms of knowledge that we can think of. Okay, this is one specific division that they do. And I'm going to try to explain this as easily as I can. Look, sometimes, when you're looking at your computer screen, for example, or you're looking at your laptop, right? You're looking at it and you have a mental image of this in your mind, okay? You have a mental image. Even if you look away from it, you can recall it from memory. You can bring that mental image back into your mind, okay? This mental image that you have is called acquired knowledge, okay? Al-ilm al-husuli, it's called. And much of our knowledge is of this type, okay, which is just mental images of everything that we have. But there is a sort of higher form of knowledge, which is called al-ilm al-huduri, or presential knowledge, or knowledge by presence, where you know about things without a mental image, okay, without a medium, without an intermediary. So what do I mean by that? If I ask you, you have a laptop, so you have a mental image of your computer or your laptop screen. You have this mental image in you, in your aql. Now, if I ask you, do you know that you have a mental image of a laptop in your mind? You'll say, yeah, I know I have a mental image of a laptop in my mind. So then I'll ask, you knowing this knowledge that you have of a mental image, is that also now a mental image, or or not? Okay, if you just think about it a little bit, you might say that, yeah, you know what, I have a mental image of that as well. If you say that, then I'll ask the question again. I'll say, okay, do you then also know that you have a mental image of a mental image of a laptop or a computer in your mind, right? And then I can keep asking this. If you keep saying, yes, I have a mental image, yes, I can keep asking this, and it'll never end. Okay, it'll never end. It will turn to a regression, and that would mean that you actually never came to know. How did you even come to know to begin with? Because it's never ending. Therefore, what we say is that no, we don't actually have a mental image. If you even really think about it yourself, you'll realize that you don't actually have a mental image anymore. That's what's called presential knowledge. You know that you have a mental image simply by fact of that, the presence of that image. Okay? There's no now extra image or mental image in your mind that's telling you that there's a mental image of a laptop. So we have many aspects of ilm huduri with us. For example, our own existence. Okay, our own existence, we know about it through knowledge by presence. Our internal states, hunger, anger, sadness, pain, these things we initially feel through presence. Yes, after we feel them, we can make a mental image out of them. That's later on. But initially, they are presential knowledge. Now, in logic, we don't deal with knowledge by presence. We don't care about it. We don't deal with it. This is actually even something that is discussed in epistemology. That's where this is discussed. It's not discussed in logic. But you'll make the presumptions that some of these things are true, and you'll work with them within logic. The thing that we care about primarily is acquired knowledge, ilm husuli. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, next slide. So this is just a division, the same as previous slide. I made it into a chart. So you have knowledge. Knowledge is either husuli or huduri. Okay, husuli is your acquired knowledge. Huduri is from presence, hadir, that's what it means. So we don't care about that, so ignore that. Husuli, okay, from hasil, hasala, meaning to acquire. Now that is the type of knowledge that becomes two types of husuli itself is divided into two, which I said initially that logic is divided into two. That's what I meant. One is tasawwur, one is tasdeeq. Okay, one aspect of it discusses conceptions, and one aspect of it, of logic, the study of logic, studies affirmations, tasdeeq. Now, each of these also becomes into two. We have two divisions of these as well. Let's see what do I mean by that. Sometimes your tasawwur, your conception, is axiomatic or self-evident. In Arabic, it's called badihi. What do I mean by self-evident? For example, the concept of your own existence. Okay, just the concept of your own existence. Is this self-evident to you? Like, do you have a mental image of your own existence? You'll say, yes, I have a mental image of my own existence. Did you have to really, think about it and figure it out? Okay, what am I like? How do I exist? No, you generally didn't. Okay, or a simple example, for example, a mental image of the sun, right? Sun which is out in the skies. Did you have to really when I said the word sun, the concept got created in your mind? Was it a difficult concept to conceptualize? No, it wasn't. It was badihi. It was obvious. You're so used to that concept that it was very obvious. But sometimes I may come and say angel, okay, or I may come and say, I don't know, jinn, like a spirit, a ghost. Over here, you have a concept, but it's not very clear. Like, the concept is not very clear. Like, what exactly is an angel? Do we really know? We don't have a very clear cut conception of it. Okay, the concept of the sun is a lot more obvious to us than the concept of a jinn or an angel. Okay, or even concept of God. That's nadari. That's reflective. We have to really reflect over it to figure out how are we going to conceptualize this. Okay, and then likewise when you come to affirmations, so tasdeeq affirmations are basically more than one concepts put together into a proposition, into a statement. Okay, so for example, in conception, I may have the concept of sun, I may have the concept of daytime, I may have the concept of light, noon, whatever. I put all of these concepts together, and I do a tasdeeq of it. I affirm them. I say, it is now daytime outside. Okay? It is now daytime outside. I took all these concepts, daytime, outside, the sun, all this stuff, I put it into a statement. Some of these statements are badihi. Okay? If you're from Australia, if I tell you it's daytime outside, you'll be like, yeah, it is. I don't have to prove this to you. Okay? It's badihi. It's axiomatic, it's self-evident. I don't have to prove this to you. You know, or if you're where I'm staying, it's like early in the morning here. You don't have to prove to me that it's dark outside. But sometimes I'll say, you know, God exists, angels exist. I don't know, the Mount Everest is I don't know how many thousands of feet. These are not obvious to you. I have to come and prove them to you, or you have to think about them. You have to research a little bit. Okay, does God really exist? Okay, I have the concept of existence. I have a concept of God. Okay, but how do I know they exist? Like, what does it mean for God to exist? I don't know this. So now you have to go and reflect over it. Okay, so this was the distinction. If you guys have any questions, please just write them down so that I have them in the back of my mind. Let's write them on chat, and I'll read them, inshallah. So now we want to begin with the first section, which we said was conceptions. Let's see what we have here. Within the discussion of tasawwarat, okay, section of conceptions, there are a couple of different discussions that we do. Okay, the first discussion that we need to do concerns words. Okay, just words. And you'll be like, what do you mean? The reason why logicians tend to discuss words is because one of the reasons you're going to end up using logic is to formulate arguments. Okay, those arguments are then going to be conveyed to other people. Okay, you're going to write them down, you're going to either say them, you're going to do something with them. Okay, they're not just going to stay in your mind as concepts. Now, in order to get these concepts across, you have to do it through a language that, you know, people understand. And that's where basically words come into play. You have to put those concepts in words. And when you put them in words, therefore we now have to go, you know, really look into a bit more detail as how words work. How does a relationship of a word with its meaning, how does it really work? Okay. By the way, I want to mention one thing here. This is obviously an introduction, okay? And what I'm explaining here is sort of the popular view, okay, within the Hausa. This is not to say that these things by our own scholars, they haven't been critiqued, they haven't, you know, discussed them in more detail. There's a lot of details here, okay? In pretty much every slide that I'm covering, there are a lot of details. Okay, there's a lot of criticism on some of these points. Some of them don't agree with some of the stuff. Some of them say, well, you know, there's extra divisions here, masalan, for example. I'm just trying to get you guys exposed to what exactly the discussions are. Okay, if you have certain questions or critiques, okay, maybe you can share them. And it's possible that that same critique was done by a scholar already, you know, because some of the things may sound a little bit weird to you guys. Okay, if they do, you know, don't worry. There are, you know, you can critique these things. It's your logic is not something. It's not a taqlidi science, as they say, right? It's not something that you can do taqlid in. It's your own intellect. You have to really think about these things a lot. Okay, hours and hours. You have to, you know, really reflect upon these things, and then you reach certain conclusions. But I'm just saying this stuff which is mainstream. Okay, sort of not even mainstream, like popular, basically. Khair, anyways, I just want to mention that. So that being said, we have four modes of existence. One existence is external to you. Okay, all the stuff that is around you. Your laptop, your wall, your chair, your clothes, everything that is around you, these are called external existences. Or more specifically, the term is extramental reality. That's what it's called. Another type of existence that you have is your mental existence, which is what we said initially are your concepts. Okay, all conceptual knowledge is mental. It's a type of existence. Okay, it exists. Your concept is actually existing, but we call it a mental concept. Okay. Then you have a verbal verbal existence, which is now your vocal expression. Okay, when you come and when I'm saying these words, like you can't see anything because you don't see, like, you know, the letters popping out of my mouth. There's sound waves, okay, carrying it to my microphone all the way to wherever you guys are sitting. But these words, when you hear them, okay, they create a meaning. Okay, there's a meaning that is being created every time I say something. Okay, so that's the verbal existence. Okay, my words, okay, they're actually an existence, and their meanings are also existing. Okay, and then lastly is the written. Okay, which is the same. You take the verbal and you turn it into words, and this is usually done for people who there aren't present around you. Okay. So guys, give me 2 minutes or 3-4 minutes. Let me go pray because this is going to be important. And once I pray, I'll start going into this. And if you guys have a pen or a pencil, I hope I would suggest you write this stuff down because this one's going to become an important discussion. This one of signification. Just give me 3-4 minutes, inshallah. Sorry. Assalamu alaikum. Can these modes of existence differ depending on a person's epistemology? But Kumar, I don't understand the question exactly. Because the modes of existence, we're just talking about what is actually out there, what we're seeing, right? We're seeing that okay, there's a reality around us. Okay, that's the type of existence. By the way, all of these things are in essence they're all existence. Okay, we're just differentiating them so that we have a better understanding of each of these different types of existence. One is the external reality, one is your mental image, one is the vocal and the written, right? Like for example, the written existence that we're talking about, it's actually still external existence if you think about it, right? The words are what's the difference between writing a word on a book than the book itself? It's still external reality. But the reason why we're discussing it, why we're making it, a point of differentiation, is because we're going to make use of that specific type of existence in the discussion that we're about to do right now, for example. It's just to make things a little bit more clear for ourselves. Otherwise, all of those things are external existence. Even the conception that you have in your mind, right? Technically, it's the same existence as external existence. There's no such thing as internal existence, or again, see, like that was a question that is actually now discussed in philosophy, right? What do we mean external and mental existence? Existence is existence. There's no such thing as external and internal existence, for example. So it was a good question, but I can't, that's the most I can say at this point. Okay, now this is going to be really important. I was doing logic, I believe, not this summer, the summer before that at my mosque in Toronto. And this was one of the things I covered with them. And I was trying to explain to them that when we try to read some of these books, Islamic books that we have by our scholars, a lot of them tend to use, jargon or terminologies that are studied within Islamic sciences. Okay, logic, philosophy, usul, fiqh, different sciences. And sometimes when we read the English translation, right, we may read a word and we may think we know what the scholar is talking about, but actually we don't, because examples I gave were from Al-Mizan, Tafsir al-Mizan, okay? Allama Tabatabai, this specific slide, just this one slide as an example. From this one slide, just the last box that you see, okay, where it says verbal and then it says association. Just for that one box, I went through about 30 different examples where Allama has used this specific concept to discuss a certain, different verses. And then I brought the Al-Mizan English translation, which is online, right? And I just read the English translation for the brothers and sisters. And I think it said something else. It said like necessary or, verbal association. It said something like that, whatever the English translation was. And I asked them, like, what did you understand from this, right? And you don't really know what that word means in the tafsir. And after I explained this chart, then a lot of those verses and even the English translation starts making sense, because now you know what the scholar is talking about, okay? Because there's a whole science that the scholar is sort of taking for granted and then coming and talking about it. But the audience, because we aren't familiar with Islamic sciences, right? Maybe in Eastern countries, they're used to hearing some of these terms, okay? Whatever the Arabic terms or the Farsi terms for these things are, they're used to it. Even the laymen, a lot of them have heard some of these terms. So they know generally, more or less, what, Allama might have been saying or not. But for us, because we're not used to it, okay, we're not familiar with the Arabic or the Farsi, and then these terms are sort of strange for us even in English. When we read the English translation, we don't really know what exactly is being said, specifically or precisely. So this is now an important discussion. Let's see. This is called ad-dalala, okay, signification. What is signification? It's simple, okay? When you come to know of an existence, okay, anything that is existent, anything, okay, the moment you come to know of it, if because of the existence of that thing, your mind transfers to something else, this process is called ad-dalala. Okay? So this is the process. Now, when we start breaking it up, it's going to become a little bit clear what we mean. The first that we have is called, so there's three types of dalala significations, okay? You have the rational, which is the aqli, you have the conventional, and then you have the sort of the natural signification. I'm going to give examples for all of these. The rational one, to put it very bluntly, it's, cause and effect based. All of these are cause and effect, but the rational one is sort of a real cause and effect. As an example, if you're sitting in your chair right now and you hear someone knocking on your door, okay? You hear a knock on your door, you have now come to know of this knock. Okay, you came to know regarding the existence of this knock. Now you know this knock exists. But what happens? What does your mind tell you right after that? It tells you that there is now somebody behind the door. Okay, there is somebody who's knocking on the door. Why did you do that? How did your intellect go from the knock to saying that there's someone behind the door? Because you say there's a causal relationship between a knock and someone being behind the door, because that door is not going to knock by itself. Okay? Yeah, you may say, okay, well, the knock could have been, I don't know, like a stone or a rock or a bird hitting my door. Yeah, those possibilities, we're not denying those, sort of rational possibilities, but adatan, in general, that's not what it happens. Generally, it's someone behind the door. Okay, so ignore those, rare cases. We're talking about generally. This is a rational dalala. It's called dalalatul aqliya. Okay, your intellect tells you that there's a causal relationship between a knock and someone behind the door. Okay, that's the dalala. So the way we express it, we say the knock on a door, that's dalala. Okay, it signifies or it implies that there is somebody behind the door. That's how you're going to express it in words. Okay. Ignore the conventional for now. Go to this third one, which is the natural dalala. Now, natural dalala that we're talking about is, once again, these are causal, but they're not always consistent. As an example, if I'm on the street, right? I'm walking down the street, and I don't know, for some reason you see that I'm blushing or my face is red. You look at the redness of my face and you say, the redness of his face signifies that he is, sick. Or he's blushing because he's shy or something. I don't know, right? He's embarrassed, and therefore his face is red. Now, this is correct. Okay, this is correct. Now the thing over here is that not everybody turns red when they become embarrassed or when they're shy or when they're sick. Not everybody's cheeks get red. Okay, so that's why this is called natural. Like naturally, it may happen. Someone's body may react to some of these things in a certain way, and of course it's causal, but it's not always the case. Okay, these two, that's the most we need to explain for this session. Okay, we don't need to go any more detail. What's more important is this conventional one. What do we mean by conventional? Conventional means that the thing which will sort of signify another thing, the relationship between them is not, the causality between them is not real. We are giving it that notion of causality. Okay, once I give examples, it'll become clear. Let's go to the non-verbal one. And by the way, if you remember, we're going to talk about the verbal one in logic. We're not talking about the rational, the natural, non-verbal. We're talking about specifically the verbal, but we're going through all these as an example, so it becomes clear. Non-verbal are basically when you're stopped at a traffic light. Okay, you're driving, and you all of a sudden you see a red light. You see the red light, you become, aware of its existence of the red light, and what do? You stop. Okay? Why did you stop? You stopped because you told yourself that the red light signifies that I must stop. But who came up with this? Like, is the red color, like from the time it was created, that's what it meant? Is that what the red color red meant? No, that's not what it meant. Red doesn't mean anything. It's just red. But we, as humans, we came and we made a convention with amongst ourselves. We said that, look, every time from now you see a red light, that means you're gonna have to stop. Okay, it's non-verbal. It's just a sign. So all signboards, all of these sort of isharas, for example, movements, sign language, for example, is non-verbal, conventional, right? Like every sign, every letter has a certain sign, and people understand. Okay. What we care about right now is this last one, verbal. This has to do now with words, okay, specifically. Guys, look, sometimes we use a word, okay? We can use a word and it can signify something in three different ways. Sometimes I may say, I sold my house. Okay, I sold my house. Let's focus on the word house. Okay, what does the word house signify? Okay, what was the word house coined for? For what meaning? Okay, the word house was coined, or it was sort of made for the term that is inclusive of everything. For example, the garage, the garden, the roof, the kitchen, the basement, everything. Okay. When I say I sold my house and I intend by it every single aspect of it, that's called a complete signification. Okay, my dalalat, my signification is completely in accordance with what the word means. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay, so when I say I sold my house, I mean I sold everything that you can think of which is inclusive in the house. Okay, nothing less and nothing more. But sometimes I may come to you and say, brother or sister, my house burned down. Now, when I say my house burned down, remember the word house is coined for everything, right? The garden, the garage door, the kitchen, the bedrooms, the basement, everything. But what I actually intended when I said my house burned down was maybe, just the bedroom or just the kitchen. Okay, there was a fire in my kitchen or my roof, for example. But the rest of my house is intact. All right, the garage is fine. The driveway is fine. Nothing's wrong with the driveway. The garden's fine. Nothing's wrong with the garden. So now I'm gonna come to you and say, I come to your house. I'd be like, yo, your house isn't burnt. Your driveway's right there. Your kitchen's right there. Just for example, your bedroom got burnt. You'll be like, yeah. When I said the word house, I didn't mean the whole house. I didn't mean every single, you know, brick of the house burned down. Or actually, there's no bricks in Canada. It's wood. That's why they burn down really easy. So in Canada, it will usually be a complete signification. But partial would be you use a word, but you only mean a limited aspect of it, not the complete, not the complete aspect of it. Okay, of that word. And thirdly, you have association. Now, this is also important, and this is what I was talking about that Allama uses a lot in Al Mizan, and all the scholars they use this a lot. If you come to my house and you say, Brother Ali, can I have some tea? I'll say, okay. I go to the kitchen, I put some tea in a cup, and I bring it to you. And then you say, where's the sugar and a spoon to sort of stir the sugar? And I'm like, well, you asked for tea, you didn't ask for sugar and a spoon. You're gonna be like, okay, well, when I say the word tea, I usually imply, and it usually signifies by association, okay, that you're gonna bring sugar and a spoon with it. Why? Because in our sort of practice, in our society's practice, when you use the word tea in this sentence, by association, the sugar and the spoon are associated with that tea, the word tea. Okay, so now if you think about it, the spoon is not the tea, and neither is the sugar. Sugar is not tea, and spoon is not tea. But with the word tea, you also imply two other words, the sugar and the tea. Okay, and this dalala is usually only understood by those people who are sort of accustomed to it. Okay, maybe in some countries they don't bring sugar and tea, as sugar and a spoon. Okay, maybe they have sugarless tea all the time. Over there, if you say tea, they will literally bring tea. It will be a complete signification. Okay, it'll be complete. Now, I have a couple of questions regarding this, just as a test. Like just to see if you guys understood. Let me see if you can do it right now, just for 5 minutes, not too long, just for 5 minutes because you have to continue as well. So if I say, for example, a question mark, okay, this question mark that I'm putting on chat, when you look at it, what does it signify, and what type of a signification is it? Okay, that question mark means something to you. When you look at it, it means something to you. What type of a signification was it? You can just type it, I guess. No, not verbal, Kashif. It's non-verbal because it's a symbol. Non-verbal are all symbols, basically. Yeah, symbols and signs and movements. Yeah. Okay, so that was non-verbal. Good. Now, if I say I painted my house, yeah, that's fine if it's written. That's fine if it's written. Even signboards, a lot of things are sort of drawn or written, right? But by non-verbal, we meant like symbolic things. Yeah. So I painted my house. Okay, you either saying partial. Yeah, partial. Because usually, no, it can't be complete. Because usually, when you say I painted my house, you generally mean the walls of your house. Okay, so you actually painted the walls. You didn't paint your roof. You didn't paint your, I don't know, driveway. You didn't paint the grass on your garden. You painted your walls. Okay. Mm, Okay, this is a good one. We're in Muharram Arba'in, Safar. The signification of the black clothes on mourning, the fact that you're mourning. Association? No, why are you guys saying association? Maybe, maybe you guys are saying association because I'm trying to see why would you guys say that. Uh, I'm wearing black clothes. Okay, maybe if I say it in a sentence, I'm wearing black clothes to the majlis, for example. Yeah, maybe over there you can say, there's sort of like an association there as well. But in my example, I just meant if you see someone wearing black clothes, that's what I meant. Uh, if you just see someone wearing black clothes, then that's non-verbal. Okay, the black clothes signify that the person is mourning, for example. But yeah, if I'm using it in a statement, like if I tell you, yeah, I'm gonna wear black clothes tonight, okay, then it's understood that okay, black clothes equals okay, he's mourning. So that could be association. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I should do this. Um, Let me just do it quickly, okay? I'm not gonna like if you can read the slides, please read them. Otherwise, we have a lot to cover. Look, the words we have different types of words. Okay, sometimes you have one word and it only has one specific meaning. Okay, like hayawan. Hayawan means animal in Arabic, and that's it. Doesn't mean anything else. Okay, sometimes you have words which are homonyms. Okay, you have one word. Okay, it looks the same. Okay, it's spelled the same, but it has many different meanings. Okay, we have this in all the languages, English as well. The example I've given here is ayn. Ayn in Arabic has 30 meanings. Okay, eye and pond, and I don't know what else. Or sheer in Farsi. Sheer in Farsi is a lion, it's milk, and it's also a faucet like a tap. Three different meanings. By the way, the reason why we're doing this is because when we're gonna start building arguments, we want to make sure that we avoid using some of these terms which can sort of confuse the person. Okay, or we want to ensure that when we convey or use a certain word, that we give them enough context that they know which one of these words we're using. Okay, that's why we're classifying and we're studying the classification of these words. Sometimes you have a word which is it's one word, it has different meanings, but the meanings have a relationship and we also know which meaning came first. Okay, like salat. Salat is a very common example. Salat before the Prophet, it meant dua, like it's a type of prayer. So it's just a dua. Okay, and the Arabs used it. You see it in Jahiliyyah poetry. Okay, but after the Prophet came, it became a specific sort of ibadah, like an action that we do, we pray. And now that term is called salat. Is there a relationship between the two terms? Yeah. Okay, salat before the Prophet is also a type of dua. Even after the Prophet, okay, there is an aspect of dua in it. Okay, you're praying to your Lord. So it's the same sort of, it has a similar meaning, but it is not the same. Okay, salat today it means something else. But we know which one came first. We know that the earlier Jahiliyyah meaning in the time of the Jahiliyyah, that's earlier. So if you would go and read a book from earlier Islamic from Jahiliyyah poetry, for example, and you read the word salat, you should know that signification is towards the dua, not the salat that we pray today. And then forget the developed one. That's not too important. And the last one is important. Last one is called haqiqa and majaz, literal and metaphors, right? Where if I can come and say Zayd is a lion. When I say the word lion, okay, like what signification is this? Is this literal? Is it partial? What's going on here? We say over here the signification is actually you're using the word in a meaning other than what it was coined for. Okay, it's a metaphor. That's what a metaphor is, where you use a word not for the meaning that it was actually sort of made for. Okay? The word lion is for an animal in the jungle. But when I say Zayd is a lion or Ali is a lion, what I mean here is the word courageous. Okay? That he's very powerful, he's very strong. That's what I mean. But I use it as a metaphor. This will also now become important when you read, texts, when you read poetry, and that's where it's used a lot. in the Quran. A lot of scholars say that we have these metaphors. So that's why this division is important. Okay. Once you have words, okay, and you put these words, now you start putting these words together. What you get is a composite of words. You get a compound statement now. Okay, you take a bunch of words, you put them in a statement, now you have a statement. Okay, composite words or compound statement. Sometimes these statements are incomplete. What do I mean by incomplete? An incomplete statement is that statement which, when you say it, your audience is still expecting you to say something after that. For example, if I say, I went to, okay, I went to, and everyone's like, I went to what? Like, I went to school, I went to, I don't know, office. Where did you go? Right? That's an incomplete statement. I didn't finish my statement. Okay? And obviously, we don't discuss that in logic. Okay? If we want to deal with complete statements, because we're going to build an argument eventually. I went to doesn't do us any favor. Okay? So ignore that. Let's go to complete words, complete statements. So by definition, a complete statement is a statement which it is appropriate for you to be quiet on. You can be silent after you say it, and the audience also understands its meaning. Now, these complete statements are of two types. One of this type is called a khabar, meaning informative. Okay, you're giving a piece of information about something. Okay, if I say I went to school, that's a khabar. That's a proposition. That's a statement which is now giving you some sort of report. Another type of statement is basically called insha. Okay, creative. And we don't study creative statements in logic. Okay, what is a creative statement? The logicians have come and divided them into like 8 different types. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I can give you some examples. For example, the criterion for differentiating between a khabar and an insha is this. If you can attribute the quality of truth, true and false, to a statement, that's called a khabar. Okay? When I say I went to school, is it appropriate for you to say that's true, that's false? Yeah, it is. You can come and say that, no, that's false, you didn't go to school. Or yeah, that's true. Okay? But an insha, you can't do that with an insha. It doesn't have any meaning. And by that, it also becomes clear why we don't study insha in logic, because in logic, we're trying to make statements which you can come then and say that's true, that's false. Okay? Insha, you can't. For example, if I tell you guys, be quiet, okay? I give you guys a command tense, be quiet, or sit down. Can you say that's true, that's false? Right? No, it doesn't. If I say sit down and you're like, that's false, I'll be like, what do you mean that's false? I didn't give you a khabar, I'm just telling you to sit down. It's just a command tense. Okay? Or for example, if I say, how old are you? Okay, how old are you? It's a question. And you say, no, that's false. No, it doesn't have any meaning. What do you mean it's false? I'm asking you a question. Okay, so these are called insha. So questions, command tenses, prohibition. If I say don't sit, don't sit. Okay, that's a prohibition. I'm prohibiting you. Okay, or nida, like Ya Muhammad, Ya Ali. These are all inshas. Okay, these are all inshas. Now, there's a lot more, but I don't want to go through all of them. These are statements that we don't study in logic. So what do we study? We study composite words, which are complete. They're complete statements, and they are khabar. They're informative. Okay, they give information which you can then say this is true or this is false. Okay, so that's what we study. Okay, so now this is gonna start getting interesting now. Now, one of the main things that we study within logic, we have to study this, are called al-kulliyat, universals. Okay. This, once again, is one of those things that is, extremely, extremely debated, not generally amongst Muslim scholars, but in Western philosophy. Okay. For example, you have a whole group on nominalists, right? They don't accept this whole discussion. Okay, they don't accept this whole discussion. A lot of Sunnis, especially the what's it called, the Asha'ira, they don't accept this discussion, right? Ghazali and these guys, Ibn Taymiyyah, the Salafis, they don't accept this discussion. Uh, they're basically nominalists. They're called nominalists, okay? But we don't agree with them, right? I mean, when you think about it, you'll start realizing that it's pretty obvious that this is actually the way it is, okay? Yeah, I'll give. I have examples. I have them written down. I can copy paste them later on. Okay, what is a kulli? What is a universal? Universal is a mental concept, okay, which can be instantiated upon more than one thing. Okay, what do I mean by instantiation? Instantiation means that you take the concept that is in your mind and you can come and apply it on things, on anything. Okay, example, the concept of human in your aql. Okay, you have a concept of human or animal or a cat or a pencil or a pen or a laptop, whatever, any concept in your mind. You come and you look out around you, you see, like, you go to Future Shop. Actually, I heard Future Shop shut down or something. But anyways, if it's still there or some other computer shop, you go into these computer shops, you see tons of laptops. Okay, and they're all different. They're not all the same. But you have a concept of a laptop and you come and you apply, you say, this is a laptop, this is a laptop, this is a laptop. A kulli is any concept which can be instantiated upon more than one thing. Okay, it doesn't have to, by the way. That's why I put the can in italics and bold. It can be. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. For example, God. Is God a universal or not? The concept of God. What do you guys think? Particular? Okay. So, God is actually a universal. Okay, it's actually universal. Why? Because we say a concept which can be instantiated on more than one thing. But the reason why the sister said particular is because she's saying, well, there's only one God. Yeah, there is only one God in reality. But when we're talking about universal, we're not saying how many instances of it there are in the kharij, in reality. We're just saying, can it be instantiated on more than one thing? We say, yeah, look at the Hindus, right? Or any other sort of people that worship more than one God. They take the concept of God and they come and say, this is a God, this is a God, this is our God. They have hundreds of gods. Okay? So you can definitely take that concept and apply it on more than one thing. Now, what do we say? We say, yeah, the word God is kulli, the concept is kulli, but there's only one instance of it in the kharij, in reality. So it's a universal. A particular would be any concept which you sort of bring a, where you can bring the word this or that. Okay, anything that sort of limits that concept becomes a juz'i. Again, we don't sort of concern ourselves too much with this, the juz'i one, but there's any concept which can't be applied on more than one thing. So this laptop, which is in front of me, the concept of this specific laptop, I can't apply it on anything else. Okay, because this is the only laptop that I can apply this mental concept to. Okay, this is not so important. What's important are the next two terms, which are called mafhum and misdaq. Now this is very similar to the universal that we spoke about. Mafhum is your mental concept. Okay, mafhum is the mental concept. That's it, like there's nothing more to it. Misdaq is the instance, okay, that you apply the mafhum to. Okay, the mafhum, for example, is of that of a human. The misdaq of it is the human that you see outside. Okay, you look at me, you're like, yeah, this person is a human. So what you did over here is you took your mafhum, you took your concept which was in your mind, and you came and you applied it outside, which is now called an instance. This is an instance of a human. This is an instance of a cat or a pencil or whatever. Okay, these terms are important to learn because these terms are usually used in books. Okay, and when they're used, you should know what they mean. This is what it means. Especially mafhum and misdaq and kulli, these are used a lot in many of our books. Okay, this again is also not so important. It was just an example to show how universals work, right? So you can have existence. Under it, you can have either material or immaterial. In material, you have body. Sometimes the body is a growing body. Sometimes it's non-growing, like rocks and stuff. Sorry, non-growing is like angels or whatever. And then you have the growing body is. Sorry, I made a mistake. The stones should be under non-growing. Okay, that's I don't know why I put that there. Growing body either moves with will or doesn't move with free will. If it doesn't move with free will, then it's like plants. Okay, plants grow, but they don't have free will in that sense. If they move with free will, they're animals. All of these are kullis, by the way. They're universals. You can apply all of these concepts on different things, on more than one thing. You have animals, and then animals are humans, cows, birds, and then humans are Ali and Zaid. By the way, the reason why we're calling humans as animals is um, because of the classification. That's how it's done. Okay, the humans are classified as animals, but a specific type of animal. Okay, حيوان ناطق, they say, a rational animal. So this was not so important. Okay, now this is important. Actually, this is so important that pretty much all of Islamic philosophy, particularly Shia philosophy, has altered just because of this one slide from the time of Mullah Sadra. So this is a little bit important. So you remember those mafhums that I was talking about, the concepts? Sometimes you have a concept, okay? Let's just take the concept of a wall, okay? And you now apply the concept to its misdaq, to its instance in the kharij, okay? You say this is a wall, that is a wall, there's another wall somewhere else. And the way you're applying this term wall is equal, okay? There's no variations in terms of the concept's application. Okay, you don't say that this wall is, I don't know, waller than that wall. No, this wall is a wall. That wall is a wall. Those are things as waller, or this pen is more penner. It's penner than that pen. This is more of a pen than that pen. No, this is a pen. That is a pen. This is a tissue paper. That's a tissue. That's a table. This is a table. It's not more tabler than that table. Okay, so the way you apply these concepts on instances is equal. This is the same. It's the same way you apply it on any other of its instances. But sometimes you apply a concept, and the concept itself is gradational. It has grades. Okay, so for example, green. The concept green. There's so many different types of greens that we see. I can come and say that this tree is greener than that tree, or this drink is hotter than that drink, that other drink. Okay, what am I doing? It was that same concept. Mafhum is the same. Hot, they're both hot. But the way I'm applying the hot on one drink as opposed to another drink is different in terms of its gradation. Okay, it has tashkik, they call it, or it's mushakkik. Tashkik. Okay, it has gradation basically. You can go, it can be more or it can be less. Sort of. That's what we mean by that. Now, this is obviously maybe the importance might not be so clear initially, but it's actually very important. If I were to ask you, I don't know, as an example, as a difficult example, the intellect, okay, the intellect, the aql, okay, the aql is a concept that you have, and it has instances. Okay, I have an aql, you have an aql, we all have an intellect. Okay, is this the first one, which is it's called mutawati. The first one called mutawati. I don't want to scare you guys with the English univocally applicable universals. Just the one with no variations, or it has gradation. Gradation, non-gradation. Okay, let's just do it that way. So aql, sister is saying, is mushakkik. Has gradational. Okay, second one. Oh, good. Why would you guys say that? Okay, Kumail is saying non-gradational. Okay. This is now like it, see, like this is one of those things that you're gonna have a little bit ikhtilaf on, a little bit of difference on. But I'll just tell you a from a riwayah, right? From a hadith from Al-Kafi, the first hadith actually, if I remember correct. Yeah, it's the first hadith in Al-Kafi. It says, Allah says that, I will not perfect you. Okay, Allah speaking to the intellect, by the way, in that first hadith. Allah creates the intellect and He says that I will not perfect you in anyone except whom I love. Okay, so He attributes this sort of notion of perfection to the intellect. Okay, and at the very least, from this, we can understand that the intellect has sort of grades. Okay, the intellect of the Prophet is not the same as the intellect of Abu Sufyan. When I say a Prophet is an aqil, he has intellect, it's not the same as when I say Abu Sufyan also has an aql. Okay? It's not the same as me saying this is a wall and that is a wall. The intellect is more perfected in the Prophet as opposed to, for example, Abu Jahl or Abu Sufyan or whoever, okay, or even us. So it seems, for example, the intellect is tashkiki, is mushakik, it has grades. Okay, you can, and we do it all the time, right? Like we even say it colloquially. We say this person is more intellectual or more sort of intelligent than that person. What we generally mean here is that their intellect is a little bit more stronger, okay, or more sort of they know a lot more in terms of their intellectual capacity and capabilities. So we do it all the time, anyways. But I was speaking more so in the philosophical sense, where the intellect is not something material. It's not we're not talking about the brain here. We're talking about something more metaphysical than that. So that was the topic regarding uh, mutawati and mushakkik. Okay. Okay. So guys, look, we're still working with concepts here. Okay, mental concepts. No, it's mushakkik. It's tashkik. The intellect is tashkiki, meaning it has grades. Okay. So remember we said that the concept is applied on its instance. Okay. It has it's instantiated basically. Now the way you instantiate these concepts, there's 4 possible relationships that you can think of over there between one or more concepts. Okay, 1 or 2 concepts, 2 concepts at least. For example, you have a concept of a rock and you have a concept of a pen. You have 2 concepts and you come and you apply this concept of rock on an object and you say this object is a rock, and then you come and apply the concept of a pen on another object and you say that object is a pen. What was the relationship between these 2 instantiations? You say nothing. There's no relationship. They're in complete opposition. The rock is not a pen and the pen is not a rock in any aspect of it. Okay? These are 2 concepts which are never sort of joined together in any way whatsoever. But sometimes you apply a concept, 2 concepts, on one object and you realize that actually both of them are the same thing. So for example, I have a concept of a human and I have a concept of an animal. Okay, if by animal I don't mean a cow or anything. I mean animal in the classification sense. Okay, in the sense that it's a material body that moves with free will. That's what I mean by animal. I don't mean cow or any other animal that you guys are thinking about. I mean in the general sense. So you have the concept of animal and you have a concept of human. You come and you apply this concept of human on me, okay? And then you come and you apply the concept of animal on me as well. You say, yeah, this thing outside is also an animal and he's also a human. What you see here is that there's a complete overlap between these 2 instantiations. Okay, human and animal. So basically what we say is that all humans are animals. Okay, or we can say in this specific animal that we did instantiate it on are also all the same. Oh, that's not a good example. I think I messed up. I should have used the word rational. Animal and human would be the third one. That will be the, we'll save the example for the third one. Animal and rational. Okay, that's what we want to focus on. Rational is the notion that uh, you have an aql. That's what we mean by rational. You have you have intellect, and that's actually what differentiates us from all other animals. So now we say all rational things that are outside in the kharij are humans. Every instance of a rational being that we have, it happens to be a human, and every human that we have also happens to be rational. Okay, this is called equal tasawi. They're mutasawi, they're equal. Then other times you have complete inclusion. This is the one that I was talking about, animals and humans. What we say here is that one concept is inclusive of all the individuals of the second concept, but not vice versa. Okay, so humans, all humans are animals, but not all animals are humans. Okay, all humans are animals, but not all animals are humans. This is called complete inclusion, meaning humans are completely included within a greater universal, greater mafhum. But that greater mafhum, not all of its instances happen to be humans. Some animals are also cows, some animals are also, I don't know, monkeys, and some of them also happen to be humans. And therefore, all humans are animals, but not all animals are humans. And then the last one is called partial inclusion, where, for example, you have two concepts such as bird and the concept black. Okay, let me just go to the next slide so it's easier to visualize. You have a bird and you have a black. The concept of black and your concept of bird. So you look around you, you say there are certain birds that are black, and there are certain black things in the kharij which happen to be birds. Okay, so what you say is that some birds are black and some blacks are birds. Some concepts of blacks that I have in my mind where I'm instantiating happen to be birds. Okay, this is called the four relationships between two concepts. Okay, when you instantiate them on something. Okay, I don't know how clear this was. If there's any questions here or anything, please feel free to ask. Okay. Just see if there's any sorry. Okay. Yeah. So let's just say this. I'm going to give an example. You have a fox and a goat. A fox and a goat. Just the concept of a fox and a goat. What relationship do these two concepts have when you instantiate them in reality? A fox and a goat. Yeah. It's not equal. It's complete opposition, right? Because no fox is a goat and no goat is a fox. Okay. Now, how about I don't know. Yeah, they're both animals, but if I would have said fox and fox and animal, then you could have said complete inclusion. But equal is basically when they're both one and the same. For example, animals, not all animals are foxes and goats. Okay, so there's an aspect of animal which are not, yeah, they're not all fox or goat. If I say hot and metal, what would that be? Just hot, like temperature hot? Yeah, partial. Okay, why? Because some things that happen to be hot happen to be metal, and some metals also happen to be hot. right? If you burn them or whatever, in a fire or whatever, or just by themselves as well, they can be hot. But not all metals are hot, and not all hot things happen to be metal. Okay, the equal ones are a little bit difficult to find because you have to find a aspect of that thing which is unique to it. That's why I said human and rational. It's unique to it. Maybe I can say, for example, um, I don't know, humans and laughter. What is this? What is this relationship? Laughter. Human and laughter. Yeah, equal. Unless someone comes and says, well, you know what, monkeys laugh as well, or other animals laugh as well, but uh, you know, that's like I think you can dispute that or whatever. But technically, we'll say laughter is a quality that only humans, you only see them in humans. Uh, and all humans also happen to laugh as well. Again, these are examples, right? So you can maybe critique some of the examples. We don't want to get stuck on examples too much, just to kind of uh, make it clear, basically. Okay. Okay, this was basically the last slide that I want to do today. Uh, and I actually still haven't figured out how I'm going to cover these specific slides. I might even just have to freestyle it a little bit, so just to make it a little bit easier. Yeah. Guys, look, why did we do this whole discussion? Why were we doing this whole discussion, right? Concepts and mafhum and mistaq and instantiations and all that. The reason why we're doing this in the section of concepts is because eventually we want to go and be able to talk about a concept with its proper definition. Okay? When we talk about stuff, we want to be able to define it. What exactly are we talking about? Now, in logic, what the logicians do, they're going to come and say that you have these 5 specific types of universals, and it is only through these 5 universals that you can actually define something. Okay, depending on how you place them, whatnot, how you combine these 5 things, 5 universals. That's how you're gonna get a definition about something. Okay, and why do they want to do this? The reason why you want to define something is because you can then have a conversation about it, right? One of the main issues that we see today is the disputes that you're seeing today are generally because the way words are being used, the way I'm defining freedom is not the same way you're defining freedom. And now therefore there's a huge, argument happening over it, as an example, or any other concept. So we need to see, how do we define things. Now over here, I'd rather just kind of, engage you guys, because if I get into this, like I didn't want to get into this, because there's a lot of, even amongst our own scholars, there's a lot of criticism on this, whether this is even possible, it's not possible, but just sort of engage your minds, right? What do you guys think? Okay, if I want to, like, how do you feel you can define something? Okay. By the way, can you? I don't know if Sheikh Hasnan, like, can the participants also talk if it's easier for them, or like, I don't know how that works, if they're allowed to talk or not, to participate. But if not, then you guys can maybe type as well. Like, how do you guys believe or feel that you can define anything? Okay, what do you guys think? Okay, by its characteristics. Okay, by function. Okay, that's good. By what it isn't. Wow, these are really nice answers, by the way. But if you guys notice, everybody gave a different response. So if I were to put all you 5, 6 brothers and sisters in one group, in one room to discuss a topic, you guys will never be able to come to a singular definition because I think all five of you uh, gave different definitions, different ways to define. Because, for example, by function, you may define something that is completely different than, I don't know, maybe the characteristics of something or the essence of something, or by what it isn't. Okay, by what it isn't is really vast. Okay, for example, how do you define God? Okay, if you define God by what he isn't, then he isn't a lot of things. Okay, a lot of things he isn't. Or function. What is the if you're going to define God by function, then what do you mean? Like, what is his function? Or what is its characteristics? So this is if you guys really think about it, you'll realize that it's not that easy to define. I'm just going to explain to you what my teachers actually say, because this discussion, if you have time, I'll explain to you what these slides are, right? But let me just explain what our teachers usually say here. See, the way you're going to define things are going to be a little bit subjective. Okay, if you have an apple, okay, I want to define an apple. The way a farmer is going to define an apple might be, an apple is a fruit that grows, I don't know, in this season after the crops are, I don't know, like how are these guys grow apple trees or something. Okay, I have no knowledge about it. But so that's his definition. That's what he understands an apple to be. It's a fruit that grows in this specific season, okay, on this specific tree. But if you go to a doctor and you ask a doctor to define an apple, he might say apple is a fruit that has this medical benefit. We have some medical students in here, maybe they can define an apple for us, right? So a farmer might be different, a doctor might be different. Whose definition is right and whose is wrong? Can you say that the doctor's definition or his understanding was wrong and that the farmer's was a better understanding of an apple? Right? It's a little bit difficult to make that claim because no, the doctor's definition was right as well. Like, an apple is a fruit that has this specific qualities and a farmer has this specific. So why do we need to have one definition? So now that's what I'm getting to. Why are these logicians trying to figure this out? Because the thing is, when you define something in a way where it is not exclusive of things that it isn't, or it is inclusive of things that it isn't. So for example, when the doctor says an apple is a fruit that has this medical benefit, these medical benefits, we say, is the apple the only fruit that has this specific medical benefit? Right? The doctor might say no. If you have an orange, oranges also have, this benefit, or that other fruit also has this benefit. Or a farmer might say an apple is a fruit that grows in this specific season. So we say, what, out of all the fruits in the world, like, is the apple the only fruit that grows in this specific season? He'll say no. Actually, you know what? Like, I don't know, lemon also grow in, I don't know, lemon's a fruit or what? I don't even know. But whatever, lemon also grow in this. So actually, that's a good point. Lemon, whether it's a fruit or not, I don't know. Somebody tell me. If it's not a fruit, that's a good way to say that. Okay, there's something that also grows in this season, but it isn't even a fruit to begin with. So why are you saying just an apple grows in this specific season? Okay. So if it's a fruit, then you say, why are you saying only an apple grows in this season? Even a fruit grows in this season. And if you start, so now you should realize that, okay, defining is not easy, but at the same time, if your definition is inclusive of things that it isn't, and it is exclusive as well of things that it should be but it isn't, then you're going to have issues again. Okay? Now, it was this challenge, it was this issue that they were dealing with when they decided to come up with whatever you see on your slide right now. Okay? I'm going to explain what they're trying to do over here. What they're saying is that, look, in order to determine the sort of the ultimate definition of a thing, you have to get accustomed to these concepts. One of them is called the species. Okay, species is your know. The species is the thing that you're going to actually end up defining. Okay, when I say, what is this? Okay, so I'm looking at Zaid, Omar, Khalid, Osman, whoever, and I'm looking at these group of people and I say, what is this? I'm not saying who is this, I'm saying what is this? I'm asking about their sort of whatness, their quiddity. That common reality which is being shared between these people, you'll say they're humans. Okay? You'll say these are humans. That's going to be your species, and you're going to have to, so we're presuming that we're going to define a human. We'll say, what is it? We'll say it's human. Now, what is a human? In order to define a human, they'll say the first thing you're going to have to bring is its genus, the jins. What is the genus? That is a common reality shared between a group of individuals across the span of that species, of a specific genus. For example, you have Zaid, Omar, Osman, but you also have now cow, monkeys, donkeys, elephants, whatever. You know, there's a specific group. Okay, there's a specific genus to these things, which is commonly shared. But there is also something specific to that species that isn't shared by all the things in the genus. But you're going to have to bring the genus to be able to define it first. Okay, so the first thing we're going to end up saying about a human is that, okay, it is an animal. So you now eliminate any other sort of possibility. You say, okay, it's not anything else, it's an animal to begin with. Okay, then what do we do? Is that enough? Obviously not. We can't say human is an animal. There's a lot of things that are animals. Cow is an animal. Elephant is an animal. They'll say, look, in order to now sort of qualify this for it to become the ultimate definition, you're going to have to bring one more thing. And that is called the differential, the fasl. Okay, the fasl is that point by which anything, any species, is now differentiated from all other things from within its genus. Okay, what is that one thing that a human possesses? Okay, a human is an animal. What is that one thing that the humans possess as an animal that no other animal has? And once you can use that, then that will be the ultimate definition. Okay, no other animal will be able to. You can't say a cow fits this definition. Okay, and you can't say that certain humans are outside the scope of this definition. No, it will be inclusive of every single human, and it will be exclusive of any other animal. They'll say, masalan, rationality, the fasl. Okay, it's that specific thing which distinguishes it from all other things. These are called the zatiyat. They're the essential attributes. These are actually the things that make human what it is. You cannot conceptualize a human without these three things. Without the two things, the animal and the rationality. Okay, just do it yourself. Try to conceptualize a human without the notion of animal. You can't, because it's in its genus. A human is an animal. What type of animal? A rational animal. Okay. Now, those are the three universals that they'll use for definitions. They have two other things that they say you can technically use. One of them are called concomitant. Okay, again, technical terms. These are called accidentals. In philosophy, they're called accidentals. Why are they called accidentals? What they mean by accident is not, a car accident. What they mean is that something is sort of part and parcel of a existence, but it's not a part of its essence. Meaning, I can conceptualize a human without one of these accidents. Okay, for example, The first accident is the concomitant, which is aradiyya khas, they call it, specific. There are certain accidental attributes which are specific just to that species. In our example, we're using human. But it is sort of external to it, meaning that you can still conceptualize a human without it. For example, laughter. Again, presuming, monkeys don't laugh and apes and gorillas, they don't laugh, assuming that. If you say laughter is only a quality that humans possess, that is now an accidental attribute, but can you conceptualize a human without the quality of laughter? You say, yeah, I can. Aslan, even if we were to presume he couldn't laugh or she couldn't laugh, we would still have a human outside. Okay? But it just happens to be the case that laughter is a quality that is unique to humans. Okay? It's unique to humans, but it is not part of its zat. It's not its essence. That's not what makes a human. Okay? And then last one they have is called aradiyya am, which is a general accident, which is now, it can be shared amongst this genus. Okay, so in our example, we have walking. So animals walk as well, other animals. Humans aren't the only ones that walk. But once again, it's something that is external to it. You can conceptualize a human without the quality of walking. Okay, this is like a thing I've made. So you have humans, which is a species. Then you have the genus of the humans, which is the animal. Okay, animal is a genus. Now, what is the fasl, the differential for humans? It's the notion of rationality. Okay. For animal, because if you look at the genus above animal, the genus above animal is a growing body, and we said growing body is also plants are also included in that. Now, what differentiates plants from animals? They'll say that animals possess sensory feelings and plants don't. Okay, I don't know if there's any science guys here and they've proven otherwise. Don't shoot me down. I'm just giving this as example. You can even come and say, well, who said this is a fasl, right? In philosophy, it was really funny because 3 years we did logic. 1.5 year we did logic, and we just kept learning that humans, their fasl is rationality. When you come to philosophy, they'll say, well, actually, no, not really. We don't really know what the fasl of humans is. And then all the ulama have different definitions. Like Allama Agha Jawadi has one, Agha Misbah has another. And this is, they're lengthy debates, and they're important in order for you to understand humans, right? It's important to know what exactly are we dealing with. So they say the fasl of an animal is anything that possesses sensory feelings. Okay. Now, this is where it's going to get a bit more complicated. So you remember in the example that we did about the apple, some of you were saying apple, or I guess I was also saying apple grows in this specific season, or apple is a fruit that, has this medical benefits. So, with the word fruit, you're already bringing its genus. Okay. Its genus is going to be fruit. Where we are going to struggle is in finding its differential. What is that one thing that differentiates it from all other fruits? That's where generally the challenge lies. Okay. In any case, they say that in order to do the best definition, you have to do something that is called hadd tam. Okay, al-hadd tam, they call it. I define it as complete term. What is that? What is the equation for that definition? Okay, they say species. Okay, this can be anything, by the way. A species doesn't have to be a living. It can be a pen. Okay, a species, when it equals its closest genus. Okay, what do I mean by closest genus? Let's go back a bit. Look at this, right? Humans. Above that, they have animal. Animal is from a growing body. Growing body is from a body. A body is from substance. These are all sort of the genus of a human. But the closest genus to it is the animal. Okay? Otherwise, yeah, I can define human by saying it's a substance which is rational. Okay, no, they say bring the closest possible genus, which is, in our example, is going to be animal. Plus the closest possible differential. the fasl. So yes, I can say human is an animal which has sensory feelings, but that won't be a complete term because that's going to include all other humans as well. Sorry, all other animals as well. Because even a cow is an animal that has sensory feelings. They'll say no, bring that one thing that differentiates, which is now a rational being. So the definition of a human will become a human is a rational animal. Or in Arabic, it will be haywanun natiq. Haywan being the genus, differential being the natiq, the nutq. Okay, this is the ultimate definition. Now, is it possible to do this definition? Some scholars in history said it's not even possible, it's impossible. Sohrawardi and these other philosophers, they said this is not even, it's impossible for you to do this. Okay? But Ibn Sina and some other philosophers said, no, it is possible. Ibn Sina actually even brings, in one of his works, he brings, I don't know, dozens of things that he says, look, here is the hadd tam for them, complete term. Right? Here's like, here it is. I can bring them next time to show you how he defines certain things. Again, you may look at them and be like, no, man, there's critiques in them, and yeah, he has been critiqued. But my point is that this is a difference of opinion here. Can you or can you not? For example, I may say that yeah, you can, but practically, it's pretty much no one's ever done it. Right? I think that's a sensible view you can take, unless you do believe that the fasl of a human is in fact the nutq, the rationality of it. Okay. So that's how to say you need to define things. Then you have the deficient term. So you look at the definitions already there, right? So species plus you bring the far genus. So I can say humans are a growing body with free will that have rationality. They say this is not bad. We'll take it. You know, they say we'll take it. The key is bringing that fasl in, which is the differential. Okay. Sometimes you want to sort of describe it with that description, right? Which is using its accidental attributes. The accidental attributes are not part of the zat of that thing. That's not what makes that thing, okay? But it's sort of attributed to it. So they'll say, if you can't bring the fasl, if it's too difficult for you to bring the fasl, then bring an accidental attribute which is unique to it, like laughter for humans, okay? They'll say bring that. And yes, the genus you can go far or close, doesn't make any difference. Okay. So now this is what it looks like. A complete term, a hadd tam for a human would become animal plus rational. Okay, rational animal. A deficient sort of definition would be growing body plus rational. A description would become human equals animal plus laughing. And a deficient description would be body that grows plus laughing. Okay. Now, once again, as I said, like, how practical is this? Is this really how we define things? Do we not? Is this just mental play and whatnot? These are all discussions that are there within the works of logic and even within philosophy. There's a lot of presumptions that they're making over here, you know, and you have contemporary scholars that don't agree with some of this stuff, so on and so forth. Now, these two are the types of definitions that we're sort of used to. Okay, one of them is by example, and this is going to be the last slide, by the way. One of them is by example. Okay, what is a pen? Okay, I ask you, what is a pen? I pick up a pen from my table. I'm like, here it is. This is a pen. Did I define it for you? No, I didn't define it for you. I just showed you what a pen is, and that was enough for you to understand what a pen is. Okay. Sometimes I sort of do it with comparisons. Okay, what is a tablet or what is a cell phone? A cell phone, it's like a wireless version of a telephone. Okay, like a landline. What's a tablet? It's a smaller version of a laptop. It's a smaller version of a computer. Right? I just gave you a comparison. I didn't define specifically anything for you. I didn't talk to you about the essence of a tablet and the essence of a cell phone. I didn't do that. I just gave you a a comparison. So I think we'll end over here. Let me see what the next. Yeah, that's wow. We did quite a bit. I didn't think I would do this much, but I don't know how much of that was understood and how much of that flew over your heads, because all of these are pretty. You know, for the first time, it would have been a little bit challenging. Some of these terms and concepts and whatnot.
Okay, anyways, if there's any questions or anything, feel free to ask. But this was the ultimate purpose of the first section, the section on concepts. The ultimate purpose of it is to be able to come and define things properly. So that's why you need to know, how does dalala work? Okay, how are these words working? How are concepts working? What is a mafhum? What is a misdaq? What is the relationship between them? You know, the opposition and the four relationships that we did. So why do we do all this? So that we can finally come, and when we talk about a concept, we want to, so we can define it. We can define it. Why are we defining it? That's for now the second section. We define these things because we're going to use the words in propositions, in statements, and then eventually use those statements to prove things. And obviously the most important thing is to prove God. Okay, we're going to end up proving God. How are we going to do that? That's going to be in the next two sessions that we have, inshallah. So I think I spoke enough. Previous slide. Yeah, this one. Okay. Yeah, you guys can. I have this. You can take them. You can get the copy of the slides. Yeah. Okay. Hossein, what was your question specifically? Because you asked first. You're welcome, bro. Hossein, do you have a question? Otherwise, I'll go to. Okay, Insha. Yeah. Okay. So then let me go to Brother Suhail's first, because I think his will come first. His slide will come first. Misdaq is basically. Let me go to it. So look, this is what I've written. It's the thing. Okay, anything. It's that object, is that thing which the mafhum is sort of predicated upon. That's the term I used. Or you can say, instantiated upon. So you take the mafhum that you have, and you come and you now apply this mafhum on anything. Whatever that thing you're applying the mafhum to, that's called misdaq. Okay? That's called misdaq. I don't know if you needed more clarification on that, or what was example. There's so many examples. So I have a mafhum of a laptop. Okay, I have a mafhum of a laptop. I open my eyes, there's a laptop outside in front of me. I take this concept, I say this is a laptop. Okay, what did I do? The mafhum is in my mind, the misdaq of it is right here in front of me. This is the misdaq of it, of a laptop. Okay, I have a concept of a pen. I open my eyes, there's a pen in front of me on a table. This is the misdaq of a pen. It's an instance of a pen. Okay, I think that should be clear, right? Okay, let's go to insha. Insha was here, sorry. Right here. So, Hossein, what did you want to know about insha? No, the examples I was giving were of insha, not khabar. The examples I gave of command tense and prohibition and all that stuff was all insha. So, for example, if I say, pay attention, I give you a command, pay attention. That's a command tense. That's insha. Why is it insha? Because the criterion to differentiate between a khabar and an insha is whether that statement can be attributed to true or false. Okay? If you can say that a statement is true or false, that's called a khabar. If you can't, then that's an insha. Okay? So when I say sit down, I give you a command, you can't say that's true or false. It has nothing to do with true or false. Correct? Now, if you can't do that, that means it's an insha. It's most probably going to be insha. Now, there's a lot of examples of it. Okay, for example, even desires. You said, oh, if we had the chance, like the Quran verse, there's a verse in the Quran, right? The people say that if we had been given a chance, then we would have truly believed. Okay, desire, tamanni, they're usually considered insha as well. Okay, they're usually considered insha. Or for example, all your nikah, all the, for example, when you read an aqd, ankahto, or you say qabilto, if you technically, if you know the Arabic, you'll realize that ankahto is a past tense, right? And you're like, wait, I haven't even gotten married yet. Why am I saying ankahto? Like I married, ankahtoki or whatever, ankahtuka. Like I married you. How did you marry me? You're only gonna get married after the fact that you pronounce this whole aqd. Yet you're still using a past tense. These statements are called insha. They're insha as well. Okay, meaning what? Meaning after the pronunciation of this statement, you're gonna create the bond of marriage. Okay, and therefore you can't attribute them to true or false. Even though it's a past tense statement, you say I married you, ankahtuka. But your niyat of saying it is of insha. And actually, if you look at the risalas, they'll say if you're going to recite your own aqd, or if anyone's going to recite an aqd for somebody, one of the conditions is that it has to be done with niyat of insha, not niyat of khabar. If you do it with niyat of khabar, which is information, then the aqd is batil. The aqd is actually not even valid, because you're not giving a khabar over there. You're not trying to tell the audience that, yeah, I married him. No, you didn't marry anybody yet. You gotta read the whole statement, create that bond through these words, and that's why it's called insha. And your niyat is also of that of insha. So all iqa'at, uqud, contracts, talaq, the statements that you say for these things, these are all inshas. Why? Because through these statements, you're creating or breaking something, right? You're creating a bond of marriage, you're creating a contract, or you're breaking marriage through divorce, for example. These are all inshas. Or nida, like Ya Muhammad, Ya Ali. These are also inshas. You're giving a sort of a cry. But these are not khabars. We're going to be dealing with khabar. Okay, statements which are propositions, which can be attributed to truth and false. For example, when I say God exists, it's not insha. This is a khabar, and it has to be a khabar because someone should be able to come and say that this is true or this is false. And that's where the whole discussion lies. If there's any other questions, feel free. The last slide that we did today was, I think, slide 20. Okay. This one or this one? Sorry, this one. So yeah, the conditions for defining, is that what you wanted to look at? So look, one of the things they would say is that there has to be certain conditions. For example, when you want to define a human, it'll be easier for me to do it in Arabic, right? If I say, what is an insan? What is insan? And I say insan is bashar. Okay, insan is bashar. That's just a synonym for it. You didn't define anything for me. Then I say, what's bashar? You say bashar is insan. Okay, for example, they'll say that it shouldn't be a synonym, or they say that the definition should be more clear and apparent than the thing that is being defined. Okay, if I say, what is a I don't know, like what is an apple? Okay, what is an apple? And I say it's sort of like, if I say what is a orange, and I say it's a citrus, I don't know, vitamin C, calcium, I don't know, I bring in all these scientific terms for you, right? And I'm here sitting here like I'm saying, look, man, I don't even know science. The definition you brought for me is more complicated than the word orange to begin with. Like the word orange was more clear to me than your definition. Okay. And by the way, we do this a lot, right? We want to define something, we try to think of the most complicated terms. When, as a matter of fact, the definition should be really easy. It should be easier than the word that you're defining. It should be more apparent than the word that is being defined. If your definition is, more complicated than the word, then that's not a good definition. Okay? And it shouldn't be circular. Okay? It shouldn't be circular. For example, I say, what is existence? You say existence is the opposite of non-existence. I'll say, well, what's non-existence? You say, what's the opposite of existence? That's not a definition, that because none of it, you didn't define anything for me. Okay? And by the way, just on a side note, existence is one of those things to say you can't define. You can't define existence in this way that we've done over here. Okay? You can only bring examples or comparisons and just like descriptions. You can only bring that for existence. You can't define it the way we've explained here. Why? Because once again, defining it in a technical way like this will always presume existence to begin with. Okay, so again, that's one of those things that you can't define. And then the last condition says that you shouldn't be using complicated and difficult terms. Okay, don't use complicated and difficult terms, because once again, the point here is to keep it simple, so the audience and your reader or listener can understand what you're trying to get across. And by the way, I don't know how many of you guys have read like traditional, like the books that are sold in home, for example, right? Or any Islamic book that you read, any book. I'm talking like any book, whether it has to do with like actual, fiqh and usul and mantiq and falsafa, whatever, or Islamic psychology, family, parenting. I don't know, any book. You'll see that the first chapter is generally dedicated for definitions. Okay, and maybe I'll take some pictures of some of my books just to show you. I just bought a book yesterday on the Prophet's seerah in dealing with people who made mistakes in the community. Okay, different types of mistakes. Some people, maybe stole something. Maybe some people made some other mistakes. There's it's a whole book on it, right? Just in that book, just the first chapter is he's just clarifying. Okay, what do I mean by seerah? What do I mean by making a mistake? What do I mean by, the Muslim over here? Does it include munafiq or does it not include munafiqeen? Does it include, after Makkah or before Makkah, before Hijrah? Okay, just the first chapter is just that, and this is something that does not exist in, Western academia. I was just reading one of the Facebook posts by one of the philosophers, or he's not a philosopher, but he studied philosophy at Harvard and stuff. He's a Sunni. He's saying that today you can get a PhD in the West, okay, in gender studies and even in Islamic studies, you can get a PhD in the West without ever having studied logic. And that just, it really hit me, and it's very true. You don't have to do logic anymore, right? Because, again, if you look at the history of it, you'll realize until the 18th, 19th century, they would teach logic even in schools in the West. Critical thinking, sometimes they would call it. But there is none anymore. There's nothing. If they do happen to teach it in universities, right, you might do it in a computer science program, but that's a little bit different. It's not what we're talking about here. This is sort of that logic, we would say it's even built upon this. It's built upon this. So it doesn't exist. And therefore, you'll see all of these fallacies happening all the time. Inshallah, we'll get to those. So the last session we're going to talk about is how to prove and what is a fallacy. How do you use it? Can you use it? Should you not use it? How do you use jadal? And these things, inshallah, we'll talk about them in the last session. So Kumail John Muhammad also asked that. So I was telling him that, look, what we mean by mode of existence or form of existence over here is we're only differentiating these or making a difference between them just so it's clear for us. Otherwise, if you think about it, all of those modes of existence are existence. They're all external existences. There's no such thing. Existence is only one thing, right? The existence When I say a laptop exists and when I say a word exists, the word existence is not different. What I mean is the exact same thing. The laptop exists just the way the pen is existing, or the words on my book are existing. It's the same thing. But the reason why we're making that differentiation is just so we can categorize these for ourselves. Okay. Otherwise, yeah, you're right. The written mode of existence is not different than any other external form of existence. It's the same thing. It actually is an external form. The words are on a book, for example. But sometimes we make these divisions for clarity for our own selves, so we know specifically what we're talking about. Okay, so inshallah, next session will be next. I guess you guys it's Monday, for you guys it's Tuesday here. Why have we not covered lafzi? We did the verbal. That's what we meant by that verbal signification. That was it. Partial association and complete. That's what that was. Non-verbal was the symbolic, the symbols and stuff. So inshallah, next week we'll do it again, and we'll do the section on tasdiqat. Yeah, there are ways you can email. I usually have email, WhatsApp, Telegram. I have all those. I think Sheikh Hasnan, if you wants, I can share my email here if the brothers want to contact or anything. Okay, so my email is. Okay, brother Kashif, take care. This is my thing. Brothers, inshallah, I'm gonna head out as well. Class is also up, finished. So inshallah, next week we'll rejoin again. Thank you, Sheikh Hasnain, for hosting.